So when I first set out to do this, I wasn't sure what kind of chiller I was going to build. I just knew that it would be nice to have a power supply that could kind of roll with the punches. You know, if I decide to use pumps, it's got the power. If I'm just going to use a fan, it can do that. So I converted this computer power supply over, and here in this first slide you can see that I'm kind of getting the wires organized there, and I added a toggle switch. You can see that wasn't quite installed yet, and an LED. There's a green LED up there, and that was kind of the beginning of the project. Okay, here you can see a little bit more organization. I've got the toggle switch and the LED all wired up. I've got a few of the other wires kind of neatened up, bundled a little bit. You can't really see it, but I've also added the load resistor there, and trying to get this thing so I was confident that it would work. And here you can really see it starting to come together. You know, I've kind of tidied everything up. I've got the posts on it with the voltages hooked up. I believe it's 12 volts on top, ground in the middle, and +5 on the bottom, all DC. And the black and green wires there were going to be for the toggle switch, and you can see the LED is already wired up and ready to go. Okay, here you see I've got the LED and everything hooked up, and it's working. I'm measuring my 12 volts, and in the next slide you'll see the 5 volts. And as promised, there's 5 volts there. I also had an opportunity, and it's no pictures of it, but I did test the fan that I had with both 12 and 5, and it worked with either one, so it was really nice to be able to have that flexibility as well. Thanks to a friend of mine, I was able to transport a 4x8 sheet of rigid foam insulation back to my house. And here in the garage, you can see I had measured all my cuts and was starting to make them. I wish I had had a full-size table saw, but I don't have one, and even my old table saw would have been too small to use. So I just used a big long level I had as a fence, and nice and easy with a jigsaw, and the cuts were more or less straight. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but they do fit together, so that's really what counts. Once all the cuts were made, I was able to transport everything into my workroom in the basement. And just before I really put this thing together, a fermentation pail and a milk jug, just to make sure that I didn't mess up the cuts and that it would be tall enough and all that. So there you see me starting to get an idea that even though I'd checked all this before I started everything, it was my last final check before assembly. So here you see me, getting some of the pieces and parts glued together with liquid nails, and using tape and clamps and things to get all this to stay together long enough for the glue to dry. In hindsight, I probably should have put the divider with the baffle in first. Would have been easier to seal up the seams in there, but hindsight is 20/20. But it's coming together here. Regardless of any issues, as you can see, I did get the seams sealed up pretty well there. I'm sort of holding the whole deal together with electrical tape overnight so that the liquid nails can really dry nicely. You might notice the opening on the left there being bigger than the opening on the right. I did that on purpose. The opening on the left, it accommodates the fan that I have. And on the right, I just felt that it would be better to keep the cold air on the cold air side when the fan isn't running, so I made that side a little bit smaller. Should also force air through a little more velocity, so hoping that will be the case. And here you see I was just checking the size of things, making sure that something didn't change or get weird on me after starting to glue this thing together, but at this point it probably would have been too late anyway, but I just wanted to see it for myself. And here you see getting the little 1x strips in there for putting weather stripping on, and hoping that everything lines up. It was pretty warped. I was able to work with it, but in some spots I had to double up on the weather stripping. And of course, we're doing the other side here. This is the next day, so finishing up the weather stripping and getting all the final touches put on it. Here you see I've got the controller there a little bit further back, and I've got that power supply going, the fan is in there, and it is running. I was really impressed initially how quickly this thing cooled off. You can see it says 52 degrees Fahrenheit there. It was 73 degrees in there when I sealed it up. It only took about 2 minutes of that fan running to bring that thing down over 20 degrees. And right now, as I'm doing this slideshow, I'm running some tests to see, how long does the fan turn on, how long can it go without the fan turning back on. So when I first checked it after it had cooled off initially, the fan would stay off for about 7 to 8 minutes and then would run for about 30 to 40 seconds. And that's keeping the temperature hovering between 49 and 52 degrees. So the fan turns on when the temperature hits 52, and it turns off when it hits 59. And so far, it's going pretty well. And we'll look and see how often I have to switch out the frozen milk jugs and so forth.